Hello everyone. At this point, I will be discussing lesson 2, which is all about the apparatus, the chemicals, and unit of operations of analytical chemistry. And these are our desired learning outcomes. At the end of our lesson, you should be able to identify the tools that are used for quantitative analysis, describe how to use the tools that are utilized in quantitative analysis, and identify the important units of operations that are commonly used in analytical chemistry. Now, this video discussion will be made up of 3 parts. The first part talks about the chemicals, the proper handling of chemicals. The second part will be all about the apparatus, and then the third part will be all about the unit of operations. Now, let us start in the first topic, and this is all about the selection in the proper handling of reagents and other chemicals. Now, we actually have 3 classifications or 3 groups of chemicals. We have first the reagent grade, the second we have primary standard grade, and we also have the special purpose reagent chemicals. Now, reagent grade, this is a type of chemicals with high purity, and they are usually suitable for mga analytical chemistry or analytical laboratory use. And they also met the standards, or they also exceeds the standards set by the American Chemical Society grade. Now, in this particular example here we have sucrose, and as you can see in the label na ay nakabutang reagent grade. Now, in most chemicals, especially if they are purchased in a reliable or credible nga store, they actually have labels no kung unsa ba na siya nga type of chemicals, like pure, dili, or kanang na-dilute na ba siya. And again, if we see a chemical that is labeled as reagent grade with high purity na siya and equivalent na siya to the ACS grade. Next, we also have another classification of chemicals, and this is the primary standard grade. Now, this kind of chemicals is of exceptional purity. No, like taas ang iyang purity, like extremely high ang iyang purity and stability. Like to the point ka moabot na siya 99.9% purity. And they're also chemically stable, no? Like they are not reactive with air or light. Ana. Now, aside from that, this primary standard grade, they are also manufactured for standardizing volumetric solutions and for preparing mga reference standards. They have also been carefully analyzed by the supplier, and the results are printed on the container label. Like in this case, we have the calcium carbonate, and we can see the label that this is a primary standard grade. It's very pure good siya. Now, the National Institute of Standards and Technology is an excellent source for primary standards chemicals. Then we also have here another classification of chemicals, and this is the special purpose reagent chemicals. And so from the name itself, they are used for a particular reason or for a special purpose. Now, the same with reagent grade and the primary standard grade, these are also chemicals with high purity that is tailored for a specific analytical or industrial purpose. In other words, they are for a specific application. Now, they also include mga solvents. In most cases, mga solvents ni siya that are used for mga analytical techniques like spectrophotometry or mga spectroscopy, HPLC, like high performance liquid chromatography, and many more. Then the information pertinent to the intended use is also supplied with these reagents. Like kung unsay purpose niya, para asa na siya gamiton, makita daw siya sa iyang label. Now, how do we handle mga reagents and solutions? So we have here a list of suggestions in the proper handling of these reagents and solutions. First, we have here, select the best grade of chemical available for analytical work. And whenever possible, pick the smallest bottle that is sufficient to do the job. So, di man pud pwede no nga mogamit ta og mga chemicals nga dili siya appropriate sa ato ang analytical methods or sa type of experiments nga atong buhaton. Then, aside from selecting the best grade or most appropriate chemicals to be used for a particular analytical work, we also need to use the smallest bottle, like pinakagamay nga pwede masudlan niya. Tapos, enough na siya to carry out that particular laboratory work. Kay useless man kung dagko kayo nga mga bottle or sudlanan atong panggamiton, tapos gamay ra nga chemicals ato, or gamay ra nga mass or weight sa chemicals ang atong gamiton. So, masayang lang. Next, we also have here, replace the top of every container immediately after removing the reagent, and do not rely on someone else to do so. So, dili magsalig, no, maningkamot, especially if magtimbang ng mga chemicals later on. Dapat tabunan gyud dayon, takluban siya. Next, we have here, hold the stoppers of reagent bottles between your fingers and never set a stopper on a desk top. In other words, dili dapat nato ibutang ang taklob sa mga reagent bottle diretso diha sa lamisa or sa salugbaron. Now, ang kaning reagents bottle nga stopper class, ingani ang iyang forma, by the way. So, mao man siya ang reagent bottle, no, kaning brown. Now, kani yung taklob, we call this one as the stopper or reagent bottle stopper. Okay. Next, we have here, unless specifically directed otherwise, never return any excess reagent to a bottle. Now, the money saved by returning excesses is seldom worth the risk of contaminating the entire bottle. So, dili pwede nga ang mga sobra sa atong mga chemicals, especially katong wala pa natunaw, kay balik na to sa sudlanan. Yung ata kabalo basin na-contaminate na to siya with the other chemicals, no? Especially if wala na. Isolate sila. Nagpataka ra tagtimbang, nagkasagol-sagol na. So, dili na to pwede nga ibalik ang mga excess reagents sa iyang original nga botelya, kay makontaminate na noon ang sulod atong botelya or atong chemicals, no? Next, unless directed otherwise, never insert spatulas, spoons, or knives into a bottle that contains a solid chemical. So, dapat dili daw nato ipang-insert ang mga spatulas, mga spoons, mga knives diya sa mga bottle nga naay mga solid chemical. Okay. We have experienced this one kasi. We have an experience in which ang chemicals ka among gigamit kay ni bantok na siya, ni gahi. So, dili pwede nga amo tong pangdukdukon sa spatula, sa using a knives, kay basin makontaminate pod. So instead, if ever na ay mga incrustation or kanang mga mubantok, mga mugahi ka plus na mga chemicals, so atong buhaton lang ana is that we need to shake the cup bottle vigorously. So ato siyang uyugon og maayo or tap it gently against a wooden table to break up an incrustation. So ato siyang iduk-duk diha sa wooden table. So ato siyang i-shake. Ato siyang uyugon og maayo, paspas kay na with full force. Or kung dili pa gyud siya mga tak-tak, dili pa siya mag-separate with one another, ato siyang iduk-duk sa wooden table. Then, pour out the desired quantity. So, kung asa lang po itong atong kailangan nga timbang, mura po ito itong gamiton. Kaya lagi, masayang man. Tapos, dili ba pwede na ito nga ibalik-balik na ito dito sa iyang original nga sudlanan. Kaya basin makontaminate na noon ang whole nga sulod ato. Now, if these measures are ineffective, in such cases, a clean porcelain spoon should be used. So, if dili siya mataktak, giuyog na nato, ato nagidukdok sa wooden table, then we can use mga porcelain spoon, clean porcelain spoon. Now, we also need to keep the reagent in a shelf and the laboratory balance in clean and neat environment. So, ang mga reagents, dapat na sila proper storage container, proper storage room, para dili sila ma-expose sa mga contaminants, no? Or dili sila mahaluan ng mga contaminants. Then, ang analytical balance, dapat clean and limpyo siya. Tapos, clean up any spills immediately. So, if na mga yabo later on, if natin mga liquid nga ipanghalo-halo, pohon, dapat takbuhan lang yun dayon. Then, last one, we need to follow local regulations concerning the disposal of surplus reagents and solutions. So, we need to ask our laboratory technicians asa na to pwede ipanglabay ang mga nagamit na nato na chemicals during carrying out our laboratory works. So, na magyudaan na ipang mix. So, asa man nato na siya ilabay. So, kailangan mangutana ta sa ato ang laboratory in charge, no? Because they have a proper handling, proper disposal na area for this one. And if ever na ay mga masubra na mga reagents, then maybe we can ask them if pwede ba ma-store dito ano to balik sa ilahang office or sa ilahang room para next time magamit na po to sa other students. Now, how do we clean and mark our laboratory materials or mga laboratory glasswares na to? Now, later on class, each of you mag-groupings man ta. And then, natay specific na mga chemicals nga panggamiton. Now, for every group, I want you to prepare a ball pen or in a way, a marker, no, a black marker and scotch tape nga pwede masulatan, no, in which ma-determine kung nato ba unsa ang proper label ani unsa ni siya nga chemicals, especially if almost ang mga chemicals natong paggamiton kay mga transparent murag mga tubig, like murag tubig og properties ba, physical properties. So much better na proper label gid, no? And so each vessel or mga containers, mga baso, mga beaker, mga nga itong panggamiton or mga volumetric flask, no, that holds a sample, they should be marked, no? Dapat na na sila label, proper label, so that its contents can be positively identified. Like in this case, sa picture no makita nato nga naay proper label. So ikaw na owner, dili ka maglibog unsay sulod ani nga container. Basidig makahilo niya, sagol-sagol na nato, ma-expose na itong panit ani, mga carcinogenic di ay. So, it's better to be safe. Now, every beaker, flask, or mga crucible that will contain the sample must be thoroughly cleaned before being used. In other words, tanang mga equipments, laboratory apparatus nga atong gamiton in doing a particular laboratory work, dapat hinlo gina sila. Properly clean, no? To make sure nga wala gyud masagol, no? Para dili mahaluan og mga unwanted na substances. Dapat limpyo gyud na sila. Now, in washing your apparatus, you should use a hot detergent solution. So, dili lang pwedeng diretso dayon tubig, kamot, pahid. Dapat mo gamit ta og solution, mga liquid nga dishwashing soap. Then after ana, of course, i-rinse nato to siya with large amounts of tap water. Kanang tubig nga gikan sa faucet nato. Now, enough lang ba ma'am nga tap water ang i-rinse? Dili. So, the answer to that is no. Because every after washing our apparatus, mga glasswares, they should be rinsed with deionized water. So, di ba, gamit kang dishwashing, liquid dishwashing sa paghugas sa mga glasswares. Now, after that, iboto siyang linuan with the use of tap water. Now, ang pang-last nimo class nga washing or ang pang-last nimo nga ihugas nga tubig aning mga apparatus should be deionized water. Now, what do I mean by deionized water? Now, kaning mga deionized water, these are a type of water in which the ions are already removed. Kanang walay ions, katong mga cations, mga anions, from the word deionize. No? So, lahi ang distilled water, lahi pod ang deionized water. Kay in the distilled water, maamato siya mga purified water, and undergo siya sterilization, distillation, ana sila, and many more. So, kining deionized water, lahi po niyang undergo. Now, if deionized water is not available sa store, then you may opt to use distilled water. And then, we also have here properly cleaned glassware will be coated with a uniform and unbroken film of water. So, mailhan nato nga ang isa ka glassware kay properly cleaned siya if inig paagas nimo og deionized water kay ang pag encapsulate ana niya sa mga glasswares kay uniform and unbroken. In other words, water sheeting. We call this one as water sheeting. Kana gong ang surface sa mga glasswares kay wala na mga residue sa detergent na gigamit, wala na mga grease, mga oil, mga dust. So, inig hugas nimo, tapos pangkalas naman tong deionized water, make it sure lang yun nga, inig bali, like upwards, downward, like balihon man mo ng glassware class, tapos imuhang balihon, tapos of course, bali na po siya pa, ang whole gid, ang whole part sa glassware kay, like sulod, gawas, then make sure lang nga, unbroken ang film sa water, kung kanagong sa mag-washing ta og sakyanan kay, ang tubig yun kay mo, sila yun kay pantay, wala gud sila nagbadlis-badlis, walay mga sangit, ana gisay ang ilang pagdagan sa tubig kana siya because that can give us an assurance nga the surface of these glasswares are free of contaminants. Also, it is seldom necessary to dry the interior surface of the glassware before use. Drying is usually a waste of time and is always a potential source of contamination. Now, in chemistry class, usually we are not after with mga microorganisms man, no? Unlike in other mga subjects like microbio. So, I am not very particular with using mga alcohol and ana para mo dry ang sulod, mapauga siya ang sulod sa mga glassware. So, okay ra nga kanang like ang usual practice na mo kay ginakulob lang na mo siya in a tissue paper tapos pasagdaan na mo nga ang tubig sa sulod kay moagas. So pwede ra man gyapon na siya para ma-dry ang interior surface. Kay if maghulat ta nga wala ang tubig sa sulod, waste of time mo gud siya kay uban lagi dili basta-basta mudagan ang tubig nga nasa sulod. So ibali lang yun siya nato, no? Patuloon nato siya using tissue paper. Okay, so that ends our discussion for the different classifications of chemicals, the proper handling, and the proper labeling and marking or washing of our laboratory glasswares and other equipments or materials to be used in doing or in carrying out a particular laboratory experiments.